G'day mate, thanks for the comment. So can you discuss disability testamentary trust? Now, these are actually two separate things. I want to explain both so you can have an understanding of how they both work. So let's firstly talk about a testamentary discretionary trust. So a testamentary discretionary trust, or also referred to as a TDT, is a provision as part of your will that essentially says that in the event of your passing, your beneficiaries will inherit the estate that you leave for them in a trust. And that trust has special rules and protections, primarily with two main advantages. One, if you have dependent children under the age of 18, that money is basically protected on their behalf until they turn a specific age, and that is normally done by the way of appointing a trustee, who's basically a person who's there to project manage and make decisions on behalf of the beneficiaries. Now, usually in a testamentary discretionary trust, we will set an age in which the kids can become the trustee and manage the money themselves, usually starting at about age 25, depending on how responsible you believe your kids are. And the benefit of that is that we can basically set rules in the trust deed that says, okay, how can the funds be used? It can only be used for education or starting a business, and it has to be invested in a particular way. And it's essentially there to prevent them from going out and doing silly things with it. The added benefit is that it also means that the dependent beneficiaries are taxed as adults, which basically provides some tax advantages, as opposed to if they received the inheritance themselves, they are taxed aggressively under the minors tax rates, which can essentially mean that they lose 50%, depending on how much income they're earning, potentially up to 66% of the income that they produce from that portfolio, as opposed to in a testamentary discretionary trust, they have the ability to take advantage of the tax-free threshold and essentially all of the other adult tax rates, which means that their tax bill in many cases can be a fraction of what it would be if they inherited the wealth individually. So those are the kind of main advantages. The third advantage of a testamentary discretionary trust is that the assets provided to your beneficiaries can only benefit lineal descendants. So it can run for 80 years and it can pass from generation to generation, so your kids and their kids. And that benefit essentially means that if they have a relationship and that they subsequently separate, or they start a business and they have creditors chasing them for a liquidation, that they can't touch any of the money that is in the testamentary discretionary trust. So pretty cool vehicle to have in place. Now, a special disability trust is different once again. And a special disability trust is basically created for the provision of money from an individual, and it can be set up whilst you are still living, but it can also be set up as part of an estate planning exercise as well, that for a severely disabled individual to have money put into that trust to be used for their living and also for their accommodation. And the reason why that is important is because if you just left these individuals with investment assets and they had that invested, even if it was in a term deposit, that is deemed for Centrelink purposes. And in many cases, that could cause that individual to not be eligible for Centrelink anymore. Whereas in a special disability trust, there are some provisions and discounting measures that are in place that essentially make it deemed in a different way for Centrelink purposes, meaning that it does not have any or it has a reduced impact on their Centrelink entitlements. Both of these things do require specialist advice. This is something that we help our clients with all of the time. So if you'd like to get some help with that, there's a link in my bio. Feel free to click. Happy to have a conversation across both of those if they are appropriate, and happy to help any way we can. Great question.